Today I fucked up by smearing blood all over a client's brand new bathroom. NSFW /warning, TMI, menstruation. Too long didn't read, at bottom. Here's a story for all my fellow menstruators. Warning, it's graphic. Also, this happened yesterday. Throw away for reasons that will soon become obvious. Brief backstory. I, 25F, work in a fairly male-dominated industry that requires a lot of networking events where we rub elbows with a lot of uppity prestigious clients that have fairly deep pockets. So it's not unusual that members of our company are invited to meet in fancy office spaces. My boss, 53M, and I are fairly close, closer than most employees would be with their supervisors. Part of working for a small business, I suppose, and it's relevant to the story. So yesterday was supposed to be the first day of my menstrual cycle. NBD, I've been dealing with this for over a decade. I just popped a few tampons in my bag in case of emergencies and figured that would be enough to keep me covered for the day. I was more concerned with the fact that the company we were meeting with was a great potential client, and that above all I had to put on a great face and convince them to award us a pretty lucrative contract. My boss and I arrived a few minutes early because the company had just moved into this brand new office space and we wanted to scope out the place. We share a love of interior design. Half the place was still under construction, so after a few minutes we settled into their shiny new conference room and waiting for the other participants arrive. And that's when it happened. That notorious slow crawl feeling that told me it was time to find the nearest bathroom and take care of business. Not a problem, like I said, I was prepared for this. Or so I thought. So I asked the middle-aged, librarian-esque receptionist to point me in the direction of the nearest restroom, and she told me at the moment there's no ladies' room, just the executive bathroom at the end of the hall. Cool, no problem. Please note that she was the only other woman in the building. So I make my merry way over to the bathroom, and when I open the door the first thing I notice, besides the paint smell, is that everything, from the crown moldings to the grout in the floor tiles, was a pristine, snow white. Challenge accepted. JPG. Eager to get back to my meeting, I start hustling to finish my business. It was at this point that things started to go horribly wrong. FYI, for those of you that don't know, menstrual blood isn't like the blood that you see when you slice your finger or scrape your arm. It's more aptly described, for me at least, as a series of clumps that resemble loogies. At one point I was standing to get the positioning right, when I heard it. A loud, wet splat somewhere below me. I looked down in horror and realized that I had leaked onto the brand new white tile. And as there was some height and motion involved, there was plenty of splatter to go with it. So I'm panicking, my meeting is about to start. I was generally not feeling too great. And that's when I realized that the brand new bathroom was so new that no one had stocked the toilet paper. FML. But, never fear. I'm nothing if not resourceful. So I get myself dressed and finished up, and on that day I had used a cloth hair wrap in my hair. I figured that would well enough given the situation, and I was happy to sacrifice a single hair wrap to save myself any further embarrassment. That was until 5 seconds later, when I realized the cloth wasn't very absorbent and my foolish attempts at hiding my mistake resulted in a giant bloody smear all over the brand new floor tile. The bulk of the smear could be mitigated with some water and more scrubbing. The same couldn't necessarily be said for the grout. So, like any sane, well-balanced professional, my reaction to this problem was to burst into tears and shout a series of expletives at the top of my lungs. Given that the bathroom was at the end of the hallway and everyone was likely gathered in the conference room waiting for me, I figured no one would hear me. I also figured that I'd properly locked the door. It was one of those stupid push-button locks where you're never really sure if it's locked or not. Wrong on both counts. Apparently, my panicked cussing was overheard by my boss, who was looking for me since I'd been gone for about 15 minutes at this point and the meeting had started. He probably didn't realize that the door I was behind was a single-person restroom, because he barged in, probably thinking I'd hurt myself exploring, as this has been the case many times on our outings. Whatever, don't judge me. I can say with complete certainty that whatever he was expecting, it wasn't his assistant on her hands and knees, crying while trying to clean up a murder scene in the bathroom. Thankfully my boss is a smart man, smart enough to not ask any questions and instead rush down the hall to summon the receptionist, who he deemed the only appropriate person to handle this situation. Ms. Linda, I'd quote her name is, she looked like a Linda, took one look at the devastation and gave me one of those disappointed mom looks, not angry, just pitying. So she leaves without saying a word, and I've decided that I'm going to move to another city, change my name, and get a job at Walmart because clearly this is the end of my career. Until, lo and behold, Ms. Linda returns with a bottle of bleach spray and a brand new Scotch-Brite, completely nonplussed by the whole thing. Somebody give this woman a friggin' award. 5 minutes later I'd managed to reduce the horror show into a slightly off-color section of beige-ish grout that was guaranteed to go unnoticed, at least for a little while. While I cleaned, Ms. Linda started telling me about how glad she was that menopause kicked in, with the unfortunate side effect that she didn't have a monthly excuse to eat as much chocolate as she could get her hands on. At that point I stopped listening, as my two brain cells that hadn't fizzled out yet were currently debating moving to Alaska or leaving work early to go smoke a blunt. Ultimately, the 30-minute bathroom trip ended with me returning to the meeting with a big smile and slightly faded makeup. My boss had managed to distract the client with some witty anecdotes to buy me some time so no one even noticed I was late. Took my place at his side, we shared a "this never happened" look, and the meeting went forward without a hitch. As for Ms. Linda, she should be getting a massive gift basket with every assortment of chocolate I could afford right about now. I fucked up royally, but this woman is definitely the hero of the story. This one's for you, mom. Too long didn't read, got my period before a really important meeting, ended up making a huge bloody mess in the client's shiny new, all-white bathroom. My boss walked in on me, had no idea how to handle it, and summoned the receptionist who helped me get my shit together and clean up the mess. Receptionist got a gift basket. I got to keep my job. I'm sure all us menstruators can relate. I've woken up and totally dripped on the carpet because the tampon soaked through, gotten blood on white towels. Thanks, Grandma, for only ever having white towels, and the ever classic wake up and have blood on your bed sheets. Feel for you, because having a period sucks, and even when you're prepared, it can still throw you. You handled that well and thank God for Linda to the rescue. What is it with postmenopausal women and buying all white guest towels? The only people who stay over at my grandma's place are women/girls between the ages of 13 to 50, and she doesn't own a single not white towel. Ms. Linda is a hero. Also credit to your boss about not being freaked out by normal female bodily functions. See those threads about women having to hide their sanitary products from male relatives. Yeah, the ride back to the office was a little awkward, but like most things we just laughed it off and tried our best to forget it ever happened. Smiley face. As a former menstruator, I have to say, I have made my own crime scenes, myself. I'm so glad that you had someone to aid with the clean-up. Miss Linda to the rescue. I can completely identify with the clumpy nature of the mess, man. That's just never fun. Woman face palming, raised fist. I was expecting a Diva Cup disaster. I am so sorry to say I really laughed reading the nightmare you went through. You sure know how to tell a story. I'm glad you got to keep your job. Good vibes to Mrs. Linda. Oh, trust me, once I stopped being mortified I realized how absolutely hilarious the whole situation was. My boyfriend laughed so hard he started tearing up. Unfortunately sound effects don't translate well over text, but if you thought that was funny, just know I tend to act out my stories when I tell them. So there's that. Lol. Also at this point I'm convinced Ms. Linda is some kind of ancient wise demigod, because I can't imagine any normal person being as calm as she was upon seeing what she saw. As a fellow menstruator, this scenario has always been one of my greatest fears. Happy things turned out fine for you. As a fellow menstruator is the best introduction of all time. Today I fucked up by inadvertently asking a young woman a totally inappropriate question. I am a financial planner and was working from home when I called one of the insurance companies I work with to get client values for a variable annuity. I was put through to the service center where a young lady had taken my call. She asked if she could place me on hold while she retrieved the various account values I requested. I agreed and was placed on hold. About 2 minutes into my hold time, my wife walked by behind me, and as an impromptu prank on my wife, I said into the phone, "Are you wearing any panties?" Unbeknownst to me, the young lady had come back on the line, and all I heard was, "Excuse me?" OMFG. In a panic, I hung up the phone, cringing at what I'd just done. I thought it won't be 10 minutes before this gets around and I'm known as the vulgar variable annuity dude. Well, it took 30 minutes, when the VP of sales messaged me with one word, "pervert," followed by a phone call where he can't speak without laughing. The incident went viral at the service center. The VP of sales told me the girl knew I was goofing off and was not offended. Cautionary tale of what not to do. Exclamation mark. Too long didn't read. As a joke I asked a back office girl who I've never spoken with before if she was wearing panties when I thought I was still on hold. I did this to prank my wife who had just walked by me as I worked from home. At least for the call center I worked for, unless you hear hold music we just simply put you on mute so we hear everything you say. Skeptical. Just to add to this, even if you hear hold music you are being recorded. Listened to those recorded calls as part of my job for a while and caught a husband and wife discussing how they were defrauding my employer during the hold music. Needless to say that didn't work out for them. At least you weren't fired for it, mate. Yeah, it could have blown up in my face in a big way. Ouch lol. At least she was cool with it, but why didn't you immediately explain to the girl that it was a mistake instead of hanging up? Funny story, though. Oh man, it was such an random and inappropriate thing to say in any professional environment. I just wanted to be out of the situation. In hindsight, it would have been much better to explain, but I was friggin' severely embarrassed. How are you alive right now? I would have literally turned into dust. Crying face, crying face. Terror of what I'd just done and the serious thought I gave to what is the best way to go back in time. I aged 5 years in 2 seconds. Today I fucked up by not wearing pants on a video call. To preface, I work at a financial institution and regularly talk to higher-ups such as directors and officers. Like most people, I've been living the work-from-home lifestyle since the pandemic hit. I was looking for a way to streamline my login process in the morning and give myself a few extra minutes of sleep. Created a batch file and a script that would open all necessary apps and sign me on when the computer starts up. Fast forward to this morning, I roll out of bed with nothing but a hoodie and boxers on and start taking calls. My first call was with an officer who I've talked with many times before. He was having an issue with an app taking a while to load, so I took this opportunity to mute myself and hop out of my chair to put on some sweats. The next thing I hear is, "Excuse me, your webcam is still on." I turn around in horror as I see that I'm flashing my dump truck to one of the most senior people at the company. I quickly went back and ripped out the webcam from my computer, as well as profusely apologizing over and over. His application eventually loaded. I thanked him for calling in and he just said yeah and hung up. I went back and reviewed the batch file I created. I found that the phone application I set to open was opening an instance of the app that did not save any of my preferred settings. It had reverted all settings to default, including always start calls with video. Why this would ever be a default for a phone application, I'll never know. My boss asked me to have a meeting after lunch, so if anyone knows someone who is hiring, I'll probably be looking this afternoon. Too long didn't read. I created a batch file to streamline my login process in the morning. The batch file opened the app with default settings, including turning on my webcam at the start of every call. I ended up flashing a senior officer on one of my calls and now have a meeting with my boss about it.